You can see forever in Arizona. On some days, the land doesn't meet the sky for 100 miles. Reds, pinks, purples, and grays stand in contrast to the azure skies dotted with puffy white clouds. And when it rains, toss in a little green for good measure. On Route 66, you can travel back in time and see yesterday, alone, forgotten, worse for the wear. A pathway nonetheless to a forever we once knew, but bypassed with the freeway. A place where memories are specks on the horizon of where we once were. Welcome to the Pdtp, Alone in Arizona, a journey to the Painted Desert Trading Post. The year was 1955. My dad and two pals had loaded up his brand new 55 Bel Air and took off on a guy trip down Route 66 from Chicago. Destination? LA. Along the way, they encountered cities they had never seen. New terrain, new people. They ate in mom-and-pop diners. They stayed in quaint motor courts. They drove that Bel Air hard, and after some 1,600 miles of driving, came upon the Painted Desert Trading Post, just east of the Petrified Forest National Monument in Arizona. In the middle of nowhere. A place where Indians once called home. Where there was no electricity, no city water, no telephone. An oasis in the middle of the high desert, with trinkets, souvenirs, snacks, and gasoline that was delivered through gravity pumps. Built in the early 1940s by Dodge and Alberta Windsor, the Pdtp served motorists crossing the great expanse known as the American West. Similar trading posts dotted the landscape every 10 to 20 miles or so, but speeds were much slower then, and each one you reached represented a milestone along the way, because it meant you were still rolling. The Windsors divorced around 1950, but Dodge and his new wife, Joy Nevin, continued to run the place until the mid-1950s when they finally shut it down. It was difficult to carve out a living in such a remote location. Just like the Indians who moved on as water became scarce, entrepreneurs like Dodge and Joy found the level of traffic and competition did not provide for a sustainable enterprise. The road from Navajo is a mix of sand and crumbling pavement, but it is completely passable in even a compact car. It's just a lot more fun on a mountain bike. Work was done on the washout at Crazy Creek so that an alternate dirt road bypasses the area completely. Another wash farther west has also been graded and improved. There are a couple of throwdown gates in the first few miles that are open. The trailer house after the tunnel under I-40 has quite a few barking dogs, so if you're traveling on bike, be prepared for company. There also is one more throwdown gate that you will encounter. Be sure to close it. Most importantly, this is the road my dad drove in 1955. Welcome to the Painted Desert Trading Post on Arizona's Route 66. My journey companions Melissa and David and I mountain biked from Navajo, and we spent a few hours documenting the area. The road to the Pdtp is a journey through history, literally. While the road was decommissioned in 1961 and was likely only a national highway for not more than 30 to 40 years, it had been home to Native American Indians for at least 900 years. An archaeologist we met on the journey told us of the 84 sites he has documented along the now dry Dead River and of other sites filled with pottery shards. While 66 fans are more concerned with what happened during modern man's presence, it should be remembered that this segment of 66 goes back much further in time and is much older than this building looks. Today, the Painted Desert Trading Post is far beyond repair. It is listing this way, that way, every which way, all at the same time. The roof is in bad shape. Walls are crumbling. Cattle have kicked in one corner, and worse yet, its foundation is cracking and being washed out whenever it rains. I bet that the building falls from the bottom and not the top, though, because its support system is being compromised. Either end of the building, though, could be the first to go. The inside of the trading post is even worse than the outside. Sheetrock has been either pulled off or has come down of its own accord. Vandals have ransacked the place. The roof overhead is rotting, and several families of large hawks have taken up residence in the rafters, their enormous nests evidence that at least someone calls this place home. Tread carefully if you explore indoors, as this is not the place Dodge and Joy left behind. Route 66 is in bad shape throughout this section and has not seen any maintenance in over 50 years. Keep speed to a minimum, as broken pavement could damage your tires. You won't get AAA to come rescue you out here. Be sure to bring water and snacks, because you'll likely spend a couple of hours or more exploring. There is absolutely nothing once you leave the Shell station back in Navajo. Across the road from the Pdtp is a red mesa just begging to be climbed. You'll have to hop a barbed wire fence to get there, so be careful and watch for snakes. Be sure to walk around to the south side and begin your climb there. Look up toward the top and you will find petroglyphs running along much of the south rim. Again, watch for snakes and watch your footing. After taking in the petroglyphs, finish your climb to the top and take in the wide open expanse. To the west you'll get a great view of the trading post, as well as the dry, dead river, the bridge, the abandoned homestead beyond it, and the road continuing west to the national park boundary. If you look far off into the distance to the northwest, you will see some color from the nearby Painted Desert. If you follow the path of the dead river southwestward, you can see where it eventually runs into the petrified forest. This was once lush land with running water and tall trees. The dead river has left a swath of sand, but seldom runs these days. In the 1940s, 6 vehicles were placed along the east bank to help with erosion control. They are still there, filled with bullet holes, their bodies rusting slowly into oblivion. Their purpose served and no longer needed, they are more novelty today than protector of anything. It is eerily silent near the Painted Desert trading post today. We saw only one living thing on our journey, the archaeologist. On other trips, I've seen a few cattle, but one thing is certain, there are no tourists. The people who once were the lifeblood of Dodge and Joy have all gone somewhere else. The road was realigned around 1961, sealing the fate of the Pdtp forever. Traffic zoomed by a mile to the south, following the corridor that would one day be filled by Interstate 40. In fact, if you know when and where to look, the Pdtp is visible from the freeway. But I could sense my father's presence along the route this April day. He's no longer able to travel like he once did, but I can imagine what it was like for him and his friends. I can imagine the breathtaking views they experienced as they drove through the Painted Desert. I can imagine the heat and sparse terrain reminding them they were no longer in Chicago. I can imagine the uncertainty of not knowing if your car would really make it across the unforgiving desert. And I can also imagine what it was like for Dodge and Joy trying to run a small business on a lonely stretch of highway. You could probably get by on a lot less back then, but still, you had to sell a lot of gas at 25 cents a gallon to pay the bills, a lot of rugs, moccasins, and beads to feed the kids. Those days are gone forever, and the fading, peeling, crumbling Painted Desert trading post stands as stark testimony to a bygone era, a time when life was slower, when cross-country travel was measured in days, not hours, when mom and pop stood a chance of making a go of it just beyond the edge of the pavement. Be sure to visit my interactive Google map for more pictures.